and gentlemen.
You are now tuned in to Mastering Mitzvahs.
Mastering Mitzvahs.
A podcast focused on creating the perfect bar and bat mitzvah celebration, offering tips, tricks, and trends to ensure an amazing event. Mastering Mitzvahs. From New Jersey's own Explosive Entertainment. Explosive Entertainment.
I know you're gonna dig this.
And here they are, your hosts, Dylan Weissman and Mike Langser.
Episode 143, is that right? Or are we at 144 at this point?
143. Math is
All right,
hard.
so
Counting is hard. We've learned.
yes. I'm taking advice from you on how to count and do basic math. This is a topic that you're going to have a lot more to talk about than I believe, just as you have the perfect outfit to wear, and I absolutely don't. This is how to navigate any big sporting game or activity taking place the same day or time as your party. And this happened at one of our events just a couple weeks ago, which kind of popped the topic into mind. And I could think about events through the years that literally stand out in my mind because there was something big going on, whether it was big like a Kentucky Derby or a World Series, or if it was just a Sunday football game for the home team. So Dylan, we know that this could make for a complicated scenario for our family. It might even make or break the success of their event. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when this happens?
Well, I can tell you right now that if I had my druthers, I just wouldn't do it. Knowing that I'm a sports fan, my friends are sports fans. We do sports together. Like, if I know that my kid's into it, I'm going to try real hard not to have my event on that day. But sometimes that's unavoidable. So I get that. So push comes to shove. If you can avoid it, you should avoid it. Now there's always going to be some game, but I would avoid the major, the NFLs, the Kentucky Derbies, the World Series playoff games. It's hard, but you should do your best to try.
Okay, so maybe the very first tip, and maybe even the most important tip that we're going to share, is as soon as you get your date, go on Google and say, are there any major sporting events scheduled on this day?
Yeah.
And I suspect you'll find out pretty quickly.
Yeah, October and March are typically the most challenging because you have in October you have football and you have the NFL, you have college, and you also have MLB playoffs going on. And then in March you have March Madness, and you have the start or the ends of certain seasons. Like the NBA is tooling down, and so is the NHL. So championship seasons are really tough. So March and October is where I see a lot of challenges. But then you also have the big ones where the Indy 500, you have big NASCAR races, Kentucky Derby, those type of things. Those are one-offs that are typically easy to understand where the schedule falls.
Okay, I want to share a story from my catering days. This is literally 15 years ago. Kentucky Derby was the same day as a bar mitzvah. And I was managing at Kathmandu, which is a bar, restaurant, nightclub. We had a ton of TVs. Now, the family and I had spoke about this. Do not have the Derby on in the party room, they said. Well, as soon as it was time for the Hora, and actually a little bit more backstory, that year there was a horse out of the Bucks County, Philadelphia area that was racing, Smarty Jones.
Smarty Jones, yeah.
Okay, and literally just the way the timing worked out by dumb luck, it was time to do the Hora. And all of a sudden the DJ is like, all right, we need a couple big strong men to help hold this chair. And we looked around and it was crickets. There was no men left in the room. They all exited the party room, went into the sports bar to watch Smarty Jones on his race. And let's face it, what Kentucky Derby is a 90-second race or something like that. That 90 seconds just coincidentally fell exactly at the same time as the Hora, and I had to be the jerk that went into the sports bar and yelled at these men and said, I'm turning off the TVs. Go help this Hora for this kid. You guys came here for him. Maybe that was avoidable, and I would say that was definitely a lesson I learned in my catering days is, don't offer the games on TVs in auxiliary rooms, but B, when making a timeline, look and see. I could have avoided that 90 seconds pretty easily if I had really thought what time the Derby is.
all those years ago, it was easy for us because there wasn't streaming services on our phones, but now it becomes even more challenging. So if you have TVs at your event, you can go one of two ways. You could either be very deliberately not playing the games that are important to your guests and know that there will be some people who watch it on their phones. It's just going to happen. The hope is that people are just gathering around that phone and missing your party. I try to identify those people pretty early and say like, hey, listen, I need your help like for this period of time during candle lighting, please, like, let's keep this to a dull roar. If you lean into that area, giving live updates about the game or like, even capturing some of the highlights and throwing them on the TVs in real time might be a really good opportunity for you. And let me give you another example. When we have nightlife DJs who DJ at sports bars during NFL Sundays, they are mixing high energy music between, the big plays to make sure that you have that natural, we want to watch the game, but we also have, a party to happen. So if you're going to lean into, I'm not going to do it at all, I'm not going to have any association with the game, know that you're going to have some people that will fall into that category, and we have to be okay with shutting them down. They're going to watch it on their phones. We got to be able to shut them down. Or you can go the other way and lean directly into it. And I'm going to tell you a story about this. When the Phillies were in the World Series, when the Phillies were in the World Series, I was doing a bar mitzvah, and the bar mitzvah boy and his family changed their entire theme 4 weeks prior to the celebration to be a World Series watch party. Now, it still celebrated Ben. It still celebrated his family. It still celebrated his accomplishments. But we were able to lean into the game, both in theme and what we did. And I think that was kind of cool. Like we showed the TVs had the game on it. We also overlaid his logo on it. And we were giving live updates, and the Philly Fanatic, showed up, and all these cool things happened where the game became a part of the party. And it wasn't stop and watch it. It was, we were dancing and celebrating, and then someone hits a home run and we were able to celebrate or not at that point. Now, here's what did happen. The Phillies lost that game. And what ended up happening was there was a really big lull in energy because they had lost. And the party could have ended right there. But what we were able to do is kind of convey the message of, while the Phillies may have lost, Ben is still a winner, and we're going to celebrate him. And we ended up turning it into an after party, a celebration of whatever. And I think by leaning into it, we were able to avoid the people being disassociated with the party and watching the Phillies game, because they were going to watch it anyway, now to being on the dance floor watching this game.
That's a brilliant anecdote and a great way of doing it. But kudos to that family for literally flipping the script on their party and changing the theme.
I think it was already a sports theme, but they knew what was happening. I'll tell you another quick one. I had a Giants family, a family that was really into the Giants. And the end of the game was during one part of their part. It worked out where there was cocktail hour where everyone was able to watch the game. But then what they did was they actually set up the first 20 minutes of their celebration, where the end of the game was supposed to be taking place, as a watch party together, where they brought in furniture and they were all sitting in the furniture, and the kids were in bleachers and they were watching it on our video wall. And then in the timeline, we built in the opening dance set right after that game ended, because we knew it was ending. So they actually
can I ask you a question? If you were a family and you're planning your party and you find out that there's a major sporting event going on simultaneously, do you communicate to your guests in advance that there's this conflict and you are going to prepare some way for them to still enjoy it? Because I know there's select people that just won't go to an event if they know there's a game on that day. Do you tell them, or do you make it more of a surprise the day of?
I don't know, man. It's so hard. That's such a delicate situation. I don't think I would draw attention to a problem if I'm trying to avoid it. But if I'm going to make it a big deal, then yeah, maybe I would lean into it. Hey, I'm now changing my theming, or I'm going to have this game on and it's a really important game, so everyone come in your, favorite team wear, something like that. I don't know, man. I don't know if I would draw attention to a problem that doesn't exist yet.
I don't
Unless you
mean
have
to throw you on the. So my daughter's birthday party always is on a Sunday in September. It's literally the start of football season every year, and I have to say to the invite list, by the way, the game will be on. Because I know the dads aren't coming to this little 10-year-old birthday party in my backyard unless they know that they have some means of watching it.
So I think you just got to kind of decide. If you're going to avoid it completely, then lean into that, or lean into making it a part of your celebration. I don't think that there's a right answer, but I do think that you have to consider it, because it's going to be a real part of your celebration challenges, regardless of your decision making. But what I wouldn't do is fall somewhere in between with no plan. I would be aware of it. By not having a plan, you put yourself in a position where you throw it out to your guests to determine what happens. And if it were up to some of your guests, they would just leave. And they'll watch the game somewhere else, or they'll do what you did at Kathmandu, where they're in the sports bar area. Like, it's just the nature of some of your guests, and we can't fault them for that, especially if they're big sports fans. But it's going to happen, so have yourself a plan.
What happens when a family says to you, should I put the game on the TVs? Like, let's say they rent TVs from you to show a montage and a logo and maybe zap shots. Should the game be on those TVs in the main room as it's happening live?
I'm gonna
I know it's a tough question, because I'm thinking pros and cons in my own mind, and if you want a second to think about it, I have a thought already.
I'm gonna go with yes, and I'm going to do it without audio, and I'm gonna hope that the viewing angle is only viewable by the dance floor, so I can keep people on the dance floor.
Yeah,
like,
I was going to.
What I wouldn't do is put a different TV somewhere else that has that game on.
Yes,
I don't think I would do that. I know that happens, but I wouldn't do it.
That's exactly the advice I was going to say. Do not put a satellite TV in the back corner of the room, because you're encouraging people to leave the action spot and create an action spot elsewhere.
Yeah.
I think it's better to have the game on and keep people, still engaged in the party. I absolutely agree. No audio. And let's face it, if you don't put it on the big screens, they're going to watch it on their phones, but then they could watch it on their phones in a different room, or like they might want to go out into the lobby or so. I think the best advice is what you started the podcast with, is try to avoid this for whatever situation you're in. Try to avoid it in advance. And when you get your date, be sure to Google the hell out of it and see like what else might potentially be going on that date. And I think our very next podcast, I'm going to put a little spoiler out, is what happens when there's another bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah in your same town, same day. Like, it's almost a very similar concept. Is there's going to be competitive things that are going on the day of your party. I think as you think your invite list through, visualize what the party looks like. That might even, both of these scenarios might even dictate what time of the day you do your party.
Yep.
The temple is going to assign you a date, but they don't assign you a time. So you may choose to do your party earlier or later in the day to avoid or embrace the sporting activity.
So it sounds to me like having a plan is the key to success when it comes to the big game in your mitzvah. Either going to lean into it being a part of your party, or you're going to be very blatantly avoiding it, in which case we need to have a plan of what we're going to do. Are we going to do live updates on the microphone? Are we going to show highlights somewhere? Or what are we going to do to bring people back together for your kid? And look, if this doesn't apply to you because your kid isn't into it and their friends aren't into it, then don't worry about the one or two people that are going to want to watch it in the back corner. Like, don't worry about them. It's when it encompasses more than a full table of celebrants or all of your kids' friends. Like, that's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right, wrap it up.
Agreed. I like it. Good episode. Episode 143. How to handle a sporting event taking place simultaneously with your party. Dylan, I love these podcasts, man. I'm glad to be back on the roll of recording these and sharing tips and tricks. I want to remind our families that are listening that, if something comes up in your mind that you want us to discuss, a scenario that you ran into in your own plans, hit us up. Find us on all things explosive entertainment at xeevents.com. And that's Dylan. I'm Mike, and thanks for tuning in.